Okay, Divya, we are on live. We can start now.
Okay, thank you. So, a very good morning to everyone joined in today's webinar session. So, I'm Divya, Zoo Education Officer from Indira Gandhi Zoological Park. I heartily welcome all the IUCL officials and other staff members and our participants joined in today's webinar session. So, today we are conducting a webinar on World Rhino Day. So we have a speaker from a Rhino Specialist group. So he's an IUCN Rhino Specialist group. So he will speak us today on rhino conservation. So brief introduction about the sir. Bibhab Talukdar sir is a conservation biologist and involved in field research and applied conservation measures to secure rhinos in Asia. So he is one of the founder of Aaranyak, NGO based in India, and currently the Secretary General and CEO of the organization. He is also a chief senior advisor to the International Rhino Foundation for Asian Rhinos. So I heartily welcome Sir today for joining the webinar session, and so will speak us today on rhino conservation and its scenario in India. Over to you, Sir, to please begin your talk.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me try to share my screen. It works. Just a minute. Okay. Is my first slide visible?
No, sir, not visible, sir.
What happened? Oh, I have to do stop. Okay. Uh, Can you see my screen or not yet?
Now it is visible, sir.
It is visible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I hope it is in the full screen. There's some issues, still. Is it visible in the full screen now?
No, sir, it's not visible in full screen mode.
Okay. What's happened? There's something wrong with the. Okay, is it visible now?
Yes, sir, it's in full screen mode, sir. Now, okay.
Okay, thank you. So
Yes, sir.
sorry for the little technical issues, but I think it is fixed now. So I'll be talking about the greater one-horn rhino in India. I'm associated with the three organizations, which is reflected. I'm with the International Rhino Foundation. I also associated with Aaranyak and the chair of the IUCN Asian Rhino Specialist Group. So if we go to the next slide, the slides basically shows us the 5 species of rhinos. Those are found in the world. 2 species in Africa, 3 species in Asia. The African species are 2-horned, whereas in India and Nepal we have greater 1-horn rhino. Sumatran rhino are also having 2 horns, and Javan rhino is having 1 horn. Javan rhino is also known as the lesser one-horned rhino, and the population is being shown in this graph. If we see the total population of 5 species, all the 5 species, in past few years, the overall, rhino population of, the 5 species are declining. Although our greater one-horn rhino numbers are increasing, but in Africa especially, even in Sumatran rhino, the populations are decreasing. So compared to 2012, where we had almost 29,600 plus rhinos, by 2021, it has come down to 26,266. Height-wise, the greater one-horn rhino is the height-wise the largest, and that is why it is called the greater one-horn. And then the white rhino, black rhino, Javan rhino, and Sumatran rhino. Sumatran rhino is the tiniest and the smallest rhino in the world, having 2 horns. Now again, giving you a perspective about all the 5 species. The white rhino, they're mainly found in African continent. The countries are mentioned in this slide, and its population is decreasing because of the increased poaching in African continent in past 10 years. And its population is now 15,942. IUCN status is near threatened. Black rhino, its populations are marginally increasing because most of the poaching cases in Africa is related to white rhinos. And this rhino is critically endangered. Javan rhino, which is now only found in Indonesia, the population is about 76. Population seems to be stable in past few years. The IUCN category is critically endangered. Sumatran rhino, as I mentioned, this is the only Asian rhino species having 2 horns. They are the smallest rhinos, and its population is less than 80. The current estimates that we did from the specialist group is around 34 to 47 individuals perhaps living in Indonesia. And its IUCN status is critically endangered. The greater one-horn rhino, which is found in India and Nepal, its populations are increasing. IUCN status is vulnerable. Till 2008, the IUCN status was endangered. So its populations, its overall improvement has been noticed, and that is why the IUCN status from endangered to vulnerable has been downgraded. So downgraded looks negative, but it is a positive news that the conservation measures initiated has helped the species to recover. And now we will see how the population recovers in both India and Nepal for greater one-horn rhino. The past distribution range of the greater one-horn rhino started from Afghanistan till Assam. Now the current locations, you can see the green spot. There are 4 rhino-bearing areas at this moment where we have rhinos in Assam, 2 rhino-bearing areas in West Bengal, 1 in Uttar Pradesh, and 4 in Nepal. So these are the population figures from 1980s. In 1980s, Kaziranga was having 1,000 rhinos. By 2022, it has increased to 2,600 plus. Orang from 60, although there was marginal decline in 2000 due to poaching increase during that time, but once the protection ensured, the populations has been found increasing in Orang, in Pobitora. Manas and Laukwa are the other rhino-bearing sites, but from there we lost all the rhinos during 1990s and 1980s respectively due to prolonged socio-political unrest. So when I say prolonged socio-political unrest, this unrest is not for a days or a week or for a month. It is for years. And that is the time when the organized gang of wildlife criminals tried to exploit the rhino populations. And we lost all the rhinos from Laukwa wildlife sanctuaries during 1980s when there was socio-political unrest. And then from Manas, we lost the rhinos from late 90s till early 2000 when there was also socio-political unrest. But Manas, as you can see, from 2009 onwards, we have started putting rhinos under the Indian Rhino Vision 2020, which were captured from Pobitora and Kaziranga National Park. And the current population is almost 40 to 50. Jalrapara and Gorumara is in West Bengal. Its populations are also increasing in past years. Dudhwa National Park, all in Uttar Pradesh, the current population is estimated is around 46. The last four, the Chitwan, Bordia, Suklafanta, and Persa, are basically from Nepal. So Nepal also had the problem because they also, that their numbers declined during 2009 compared to 2000. And this decline in Chitwan and Bordia is also related to socio-political unrest. So socio-political unrest has a direct link with increase of rhino poaching, whether in India or Nepal. So that is a important lesson learned, that in future, if socio-political unrest goes on for longer durations, our enforcement agencies need to be extra cautious to ensure better protection of the rhinos. So these are the habitats where the rhinos are found. The small grassland areas, these are the grazing fields where they basically forage. Then we have wetlands, and then the tall grasslands. So all these are very important habitat for the greater one-horn rhino. And when we manage grassland properly, it also helps the other herbivores living in the same ecosystem. Some other species which are also sharing the same kind of habitat includes the elephants, the water buffalo, Bengal florican. This is one of the species which are dependent on grasslands. And now the Bengal floricans in Assam are mainly found in rhino-bearing areas because that is where the grasslands are managed and protected. Outside the rhino-bearing areas, most of the grasslands were altered mainly for developmental purpose and also for agriculture. As such, this bird is now only living in an area where the grasslands are protected under the protected area network. Swamp francolin is another species which are also using grassland habitat. There are many more species. I'm just showing you some of the examples. Now, while the poaching is being well acknowledged as a major threat to rhinos, but there are other threats which are silent killer. So habitat degradation is another silent killer with regards to rhinos future. We have seen some of the important prime habitat, rhino habitat has been overshadowed by the growth of alien invasive species. This has been becoming a major problem in places like Orang National Park, Povitra Wildlife Sanctuary, Manas National Park. Kaziranga also, it was affected earlier, but now somehow it is under control. But again, Chitwan National Park in Nepal are also having a huge problem with these invasive alien species. So this management of habitat is an important aspect in order to secure the rhinos. The conservation success of rhinos, although mainly focus on how much we could reduce poaching, which is very good, but we should also equally focus on habitat restoration, because as the rhino population in India and Nepal are in increasing trend, we need to manage habitat at the optimum conditions in order to offer good foraging ground for the increasing number of rhinos and other herbivores. Flood is an annual phenomenon, especially in Assam, because most of our rhinos are living in the floodplain ecosystem. So to me, flood is not unwanted. Annual flood is wanted because it energizes the wetland ecosystem, the alluvial floodplain ecosystems. If we see the history of flood, 1988 in the left side, you can see that was the highest flood recorded in Kaziranga National Park, and where we lost about close to 40 rhinos. But then, if ecologically I am asked questions on the flood, I would say, at this moment, we need not too much worry about the flood. This is an annual phenomenon. Rhino has been living in floodplains for years. In 1950, there was a big earthquake in Assam, and after that, flood has been a regular phenomenon. In 1966, rhino population in Kaziranga was 360, and today it has gone to 2,600. So the flood is not negatively impacting the population growth of rhinos. So generally the weaker animals dies, and that is what the survival of the fittest theory says, that in nature takes its own course to take out the weaker animals, and they keep the strongest animals so that their progeny can be stronger. So in flood, the rhinos are having some challenging tasks, but then rhinos are also intelligent. This is the picture is from Povitra Wildlife Sanctuary. It was inundated, under flood water for 2 days. But as soon as the flood water, recedes, this mother and calf came to the range of his areas to eat whatever grasses were available. So rhinos also knows, where they can get, unless and until they are not disturbed, they can find out a way, during that challenging time, because flood is not there for months, it's mainly for few days. And these animals are quite, strong in order to, survive in a normal kind of flood. What happens when the flood comes subsequently, maybe in a year 4 or 5 times, flood comes, then in the, say for example, the fourth or fifth flood is little, devastating or more water, then animals are, exhausted, because in the first, second and third waves of flood, they are already exhausted their energy. So again, if fourth and fifth flood becomes high, then the casualties are becoming more. So as I mentioned, we lost rhinos from Laukwa and Manas National Park during 1980s and 1990s, but land remains. Lands were not encroached. As long as land is conserved, land is protected, there is a future, to play the second innings. And that is what the Assam government initiated in 2005, when the socio-political scenario improved in Manas National Park area. So it was decided to translocate rhinos from Povitra and Kaziranga National Park. So far 20 rhino died. Wildlife trade is the fourth largest illegal trade, and rhinos are mainly killed because of its horn. Because in few countries there are beliefs that rhino horn can, cure some of the diseases, whereas the alternative medicines are already there, which are scientifically proved that this, alternative medicines works well. And but then there are some beliefs in few countries in Asia, and that is where, the rhino horns or other wildlife products are being, destined, by killing the animals in African or Indian or in Asian context. So rhino horns, especially are used for many purposes. Sometimes, as I mentioned, as a medicine. Sometimes it's also used as a ball. So these are all, beliefs in certain countries that, if they use those, they will become stronger. Vietnam is becoming a major, destinations for the rhino horn, as a recipient and trade. And this is also because of the economic growth that has been noticed in Vietnam. People are getting rich. So, whenever people get rich, they want to find out what new. And some people thought, okay, if we can, grind the rhino horn powder and mix it with drinks, it can make them strong. So these are all assumptions. There's no scientific proof. With regards to the rhino, killing or poaching in Assam, there are, times when rhino poaching was high. 2013, rhino poaching in Assam, took about 41 rhinos from different part of Assam. That is the time when even the Guwahati High Court has taken a public interest litigations at their own, asking the state government to take, measures. And state governments too proactively took measures and, doubled the staff strength in Kaziranga National Park and other rhino-bearing areas. The Assam Police has been given, given a task to the Special Task Force of Assam Police to reduce rhino poaching. And because of the concerted effort, we could see, from 41, it has reduced to 0 last year. This year, so far, we lost 3. So if better protections are ensured, rhinos can be protected. In contrast, the African continents are losing huge number of rhinos from 2013. If we see the first one, in 2008, only 83 rhinos were killed. From 2013 to 2017, those 5 years, you can see over 1,000 rhinos were killed in African continent, especially in South Africa. And killing 1,000 rhinos per year means per day 3 rhinos were killed. So these are the scenarios in African continent. Of course, in past 2 years, poaching has reduced compared to what it was probably in 2015, 2014. But still 500 rhinos are a huge, population. And that is why, we could see the population of the white rhino species are declining because their death rates are more than the birth rates in past few years. So if this kind of pressure comes to India, how are we going to address? So this is something we are now working with the Forest Department and also other enforcement agencies, because nowhere rhino horns are safe. Rhino horns are stolen from European museums. When we talk about Europe, we think that Europe is having the best of the best protection system. Yes, they have. But then, the criminals, wildlife criminals are also having minds, their brain, and they have, find out ways and means to take out the rhino horns from the European museums. So rhino for its horn will always remain a protection dependent species. So protection has to be ensured in order to secure, the future of rhinos. As I mentioned, rhino, this overall wildlife trade is the fourth largest illegal trade after narcotics, human trafficking, arms, and ammunition smuggling. So that is why, we are emphasizing even at the judiciary level that wildlife crime has to be dealt, as soon as possible. There are fast track courts being, already set up in Assam to deal with the wildlife offenses, especially the rhinos and other Schedule 1 species. These are some of the markets in the Southeast Asian countries where wildlife products are sold openly. So IUCN, Asian Rhino Specialist Group, African Rhino Specialist Group, and Traffic, we need to submit a report to the CITES, the Convention on International Trade on Endangered Species of Flora and Fauna, on the overall status, conservation, and trade of African and rhino and Asian rhinos. So in this report, which are available in the CITES website, we give a comparative, analysis of the current situations, including the trade route where the rhino hunts are going, and then CITES are in the conference of parties, they takes the necessary steps directing the countries to gear up in order to reduce this illegal wildlife trade. As an NGO from Aaranyak, which are based in Guwahati, we are trying to complement the effort of the wildlife officials working in rhino-bearing areas. We earlier found that post-poaching investigations was not up to the mark. So we introduced trained sniffer dogs in rhino-bearing areas, initially in Pobitora and then in Kaziranga. And these dogs are now helping the wildlife officials from scene of crime investigations, leading to the arrest of the suspects involved in the crime. So these pictures, you can see the dog is crossing the national highway after getting sent from the scene of crime. The dog also found, the axe which was used to cut the horns. Dog also found, the clothes which were used by the poachers, leading to the arrest of the culprits. Awareness is very important in the fringe villages because community act as a second line of defense. So we need to enhance and strengthen the community's support. If the communities are supporting conservation and the second line of defense is strong, then it will be very difficult for the criminals to enter the core area of wildlife, of the rhino-bearing areas or other wildlife areas. So working with communities at different level are very important. In Assam, we have some village defense patrol groups. They do patrolling in the village levels. So along with police, we motivated them that they also need to keep an eye on wildlife trade, and whatever equipments they need, like raincoats, torchlight, we try to provide them in association with the nearest police station. So we have also started workshop with the district police, where all the in charge of the police stations attend this workshop, basically sensitizing them with regards to the importance of dealing with the wildlife crime. And we are getting very good support because we also form a WhatsApp group. Whenever police catches some wildlife producers, they need help for identifications, and we provide that technical help, which helps them to file the case as fast as possible. We are also, working with the judiciary officials through the Legal Service Authority or sometimes with the Guwahati High Court, inviting, the High Court judges in these workshops and the other, judges from the lower courts. And these kind of workshops are very helpful because the senior judges from Guwahati High Court, advise the chief judicial magistrate or the district and session judge to take the wildlife cases, on urgent basis. As I mentioned earlier, there are, at least 14, fast track courts being set up in Assam to deal with the wildlife offenses, especially for the Schedule 1 species and rhinos. We are also working with other enforcement agencies. Generally the concept was that rhinos, tigers are the headache of the forest department, and other enforcement agencies has nothing, no role to play. But no, all the enforcement agencies has an important role to play. So we are working with these, SSB, which are posted in Indo-Bhutan border. They are also posted along the Indo-Nepal border, with the ITBP, which are in the high mountain areas of Arunachal, with CISF, who are working, in the airports. So these kind of workshop also build a good relations and networking in order to check the illegal wildlife trade, especially the rhino horn trade in Assam. So why we are doing this? We are doing this to ensure the future of our own children, because our children may ask, what happened? What did we do that they could see nothing? So in order to ensure that they can also see a live rhinos in the wild, they can also see a good forest in their life. They also have access to good waters, so that it can also contribute to a better human well-being. We need to do something. And occasions like this rhino, wall rhino day is a tool, to reach out to the people. But this is not the first and last effort. I think every day we should be careful about our actions, inactions, and reactions related to nature, and try to readjust ourselves in order to ensure that we become a responsible citizens on this planet Earth, so that the future of our own child can be made brighter, so that they can live in a green and clean environment. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I have shared my email ID in this last slide, which if you are interested, you can note it down. And we can now probably go for some questions and answers if we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your expertise and contributing to our Rhino collective understanding for Rhino conservation. So, moving on to the questions. So, we have questions from our participants. So, the first question is how is technology being utilized in rhino conservation efforts, such as anti-poaching efforts and monitoring?
Okay, in Kaziranga, almost 7 years ago, there are electronic eye, the camera which is put in the high, which can cover around close to 100 square kilometer area. So those were used in Kaziranga. Those were useful. Sometimes nowadays drones are also used, but the difficulties with drones is the battery backup. It can hardly fly to from 20 to 30 minutes, but at a glance they can give a good overview in an area where the forest staff needs to find out what is happening. So tools and technologies are being used, but along with tools and technologies, what is more important is feet on the ground. The forest guards' foot on the ground has to be ensured. If we so much rely on technology, it will give us good evidence, but it may not give us leading to actions. Okay, so we need to
Yes.
combine the use of technology and foots on the ground together in order to achieve greater success.
Thank you, sir, for answering. So the next question is, as you are involved in rhino conservation for many years, so one of the participants wanted to know, like, he's asking to share a success story or a milestone achieved in rhino conservation in India.
Well, I think one of the milestone, in rhino conservation, that its populations are increasing. You know, in everywhere, even whether it is in West Bengal, it is in Assam, or it is in Uttar Pradesh. So that is a great milestone. So second milestone, because of the increase of the population and better conservation measures in place, the greater one-horn rhino could be downgraded from endangered to vulnerable. That is another success. The third success, I would say, wherever rhinos are there, the efficacy of frontline forest staffs are at maximum. Okay, so that enhances their capabilities to deal with any sort of wildlife offenses. And fourth, in the rhino bearing areas, the surrounding people are very supportive. They are equally feeling proud that next door they are having rhinos. And even rhinos sometimes do little bit of damage in their crop field, but I have never seen people coming to the forest department asking for compensations. they gladly accept that, oh, rhino has come to my field. That means the rhino will give me some blessings for my own crop. So those kind of feelings are very important, which is unique, with regards to India and Nepal. And that is the reason probably, the populations are increasing in past few years.
Thank you, sir. So the third question is, how do the Assam community involve in rhino conservation?
Well, I think for Assamese people, it is a pride. It is part of our culture. So people are very emotional with rhinos. People may not be that much emotional with elephants or tigers, but rhino is an issue. If a rhino is killed, people's voice become very, strong. In fact, it has become a political issue in last election, where people were asking all the political parties to spell out what kind of actions they will take in order to secure the future of rhinos. So I think rhinos for the Assamese people are close to the heart, and this is a sentiment for the people of Assam, which needs to go on, because this cultural affinity between people and the wild animals needs to be strengthened. That can secure the future, as India is a populated country, but despite having highest populations, we still have a vast varieties of the wildlife, and that is because of our cultural affinities with wild animals.
Thank you, sir, for answering all the questions. Hope everyone had a good information about the rhinos. So I wanted to extend my sincere gratitude for your enlightening and informative presentation during the recent webinar of rhino conservation. So your expertise and passion for this critical subject is truly inspiring, and your insights added a significant value to the event, sir. And also your commitment to raising awareness and finding solutions, and also the challenges facing to rhino conservation India is highly appreciable. So I also thank once again for sharing your information on rhinos and also conservation in India. So I thank Dr. Nandini Salaria, IFS Curator of Indira Gandhi Zoological Park, for the continuous support for all the awareness programs to be happening. And I also thank the IUCL members for joining the webinar session, and also extend my hearty thanks to our also the participants for their active participation in the webinar. So let's all protect rhinos and conserve them. Have a good day and happy World Rhino Day. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.